Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala syafil anbiya mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. La haula wala quwwata illa billah. Yang dihormati warga dan rakan-rakan IIUM sekalian, para budiman dan dermawan daripada Bank Pembangunan Malaysia dan Bank Rakyat, ahli-ahli pengurusan universiti, para pelajar, para media, saudara-saudari yang dikasihi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Saya terlebih dahulu ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih di atas penghormatan ini. Kita dapat berjumpa sekali lagi pada tahun keduanya untuk membincangkan tentang masa hadapan universiti daripada hati ke hati, melihatkan apa yang telah berlaku pada tahun lalu dan melakukan satu kesenambungan yang perlu kita lakukan dalam menganjakkan universiti ini kepada tahap yang lebih kita banggakan, bukan saja bagi kita di universiti ini, lebih-lebih lagi daripada rakyat Malaysia dan juga umat Islam secara keseluruhannya. Ini adalah satu amanah yang telah kita pikul dan sudah tentunya saya mendahului pembaharuan amanah ini dalam kita merangkakan apakah yang perlu kita lakukan dalam masa yang terdekat ini. Yang ditunjukkan tadi lawatan-lawatan saya di kuliah-kuliah selama 4 bulan di sini, melihatkan apa yang perlu kita lakukan dan turun ke padang seolah-olah macam seorang politik untuk mendapatkan undi dalam menjalankan tugas di sini. Saya ingin berterima kasih kepada semua pihak yang telah membantu begitu jujur dengan ikhlas dan bekerja rapat dengan bukan sahaja saya tetapi pejabat Rector untuk memastikan apa yang perlu kita lakukan. Kita telah berjumpa ramai daripada ahli akademik, pentadbiran, pelara-pelajar, alumni dan juga orang-orang perseorangan yang memberi tegur dan nasihat dan juga tunjuk ajar tentang apa yang telah berlaku di universiti ini dan apa yang wajar kita lakukan untuk masa hadapan. Tanpa nasihat dan juga hubungan baik dengan mereka ini, mungkin kita tidak dapat melakukan apa yang hendak kita lakukan pada hari ini. Hatta 5 bulan lebih kurang begitu, kita merangkakan apakah ia kerangka besar yang ingin kita kongsikan bagi semua pihak, supaya kemudiannya apabila saya turun ke kuliah-kuliah, kita dapat mengisi apa yang perlu kita isi dalam satu pendekatan yang kita panggil sebagai bottom up. Kalau kita biasa dengan top down approach, iaitu pihak pengurusan mengatakan buat itu, ini dan ini, tetapi kali ini kita mengambil satu lagi langkah yang berbeza untuk mencari idea-idea daripada kalangan warga universiti ini sendiri, kerana kita percaya bahawa warga universiti ini juga mempunyai komitmen yang besar bagi universiti ini dan mempunyai idea dan aspirasi mereka sendiri, apalagi bila kita melihatkan bahawa setiap kuliah itu mempunyai pengalaman mereka yang berbeza dengan kuliah yang lain. So there is no one size fits all solution for a university of this dimension with this kind of an aspiration. Therefore it is better for us to go down and engage with you to find out what is it that you want for the university, not only at the level of the individual or the kuliah, but more importantly, how can you merge this into a plan that all of us can own, all of us can feel we belong to those plans, so that it becomes a greater commitment for us to work and to move forward into the future. Thus, since 4th January, I've been going down to all kuliah, I think more than 10, I think it's 11 for my count today. We have got 6 more to go, but alhamdulillah, all the kuliahs that I visited, I must thank you for the kind of warm support, hospitality and generosity, not only in terms of looking after us at your kuliah, but more importantly in the kind of dialogue we have and the kind of ideas that is shared and even the kind of dissent. Some of you do not agree with certain things, but that doesn't matter. This is a university. We need to remind ourselves in university, we celebrate debates, we celebrate divergence of ideas, we celebrate dissents, as long as we can agree to disagree so that we can move forward. It is not dragging us back. So those are the new cultures. I hope inshallah we will try to embed within the university so that greater participation, greater commitment, and greater ownership to move the university forward. It does not belong to any one of us. In fact, it belongs to the Ummah. And therefore, we are holding this amanah for the Ummah to ensure at the end of the day, we will tell them, this is what we have done for you, and this is what we hope you can benefit from. That is perhaps the larger mission of this university moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not have much time today because I have to leave by 11:15 to another function at the Japanese embassy. Japanese, when they invite you, they expect you to be there 15 minutes beforehand. Yeah? And on that note, I also am very happy and very proud to know that we are able to start on time today, 8:30, as a kind of a symbol that we are now very particular about time and also very particular about how we move things in this university. Last year, when I spoke to you, we spoke about change. I think the statement that I started off with is something like, university is about change. Yeah? I make a note that students that comes in with zero knowledge leave the university with full of knowledge, not only changing their mindset, but also changing their way of life. Some of us came here with a kind of credential that at the end of the day, we leave this place with greater credentials. Some of us come here with some commitment, but we leave this place with greater commitment. We have seen this change moving from time to time, and therefore this is the commitment of the university. This is a symbol of the university. A university, I mentioned last time, that do not make change is a failing university. Worst thing is a university that moves backwards. I think that university do not serve its purpose, being a university in educating people, not only themselves, but also all the people that had been engaging with them. So it is pertinent, I think, it is imperative that we want to move into this change, and certainly to create change is not an easy thing. Some of us are very comfortable with the way we do, particularly the most successful ones. We think we have arrived at a pinnacle, and therefore we do not want to make any more changes, otherwise it will upset us. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, change happens every time, meaning to say that all the time we need to find out where we are and how we can move to that level, the new level that is created. Malaysia has created its own change last May 10th. Yeah? And that's a change that we need to cope with. We cannot be imagining that we are still at the old stage, and therefore the new change can be just disregarded and it becomes irrelevant to us. The moment we take that kind of a mindset, it is almost suicidal for us not to take this change and embraced it and moved on. And therefore this university has got a particular interest to ensure that within this change, how this university plays its role, particularly in the context of Islam, particularly in the context of internationalization. How do we now interpret and embed these two very important symbols for the university as an Islamic international university, the one and only in Malaysia, perhaps also around this particular region. So it becomes incumbent upon us to take this leadership role, and I always emphasize the leadership role in the academia belongs to the university and nobody else. The moment we abdicate this responsibility, then the vacuum is taken by somebody else. The bureaucracy may come in, the politician may come in, the business people may come in, and they will then tell you what to do. They will tell us what to teach. Philosophy is not important. Human sciences is not important. All that is important is business, IT, commerce, and the rest of it. The human part of education becomes somewhere within the vicinity that we do not see it anymore, and hence we call education without soul. Pendidikan tanpa roh. This is a battle, I think, that we are fighting today, because we want to bring back the soul of education within the university in the context of Islam and in the context of Islamization. So when we talk about change, then I want to remind ourselves that the change that we are looking at is a collective change. It's not just change for myself. As a rector, I probably can do many things and just fan my own fancies, yeah? But it is not so. We need to find a collective change that we have the responsibility to work together, and that collective change in our case is to bring the name and the stature and the reputation and the respectability of this university, IIUM, that we all belong to, in a way that we have, committed ourselves to this particular cause. Now, to do that in a collective way, I think we need to have some clarity. What is it that we are talking about in the context of change? And inshallah, within the next 1 hour or so, we'll try to clarify what are the major changes that we need to take on. The minor changes certainly will follow suit, but if you can agree on major changes, that major changes will be the milestone that all of us will work together in the context of trying to make it happen within the next, inshallah, 2 years. Yeah? I talk about 2 years because I think there's an urgency to think about the change, not a walk in the park, but rather a kind of a rush to make sure that we embrace the change and demonstrate to everybody that this university is able to change, and therefore you need to come along with us if you want to be part of that major changes within the world of education. And that clarity is also very important, because then it will allow us to converge into one point. Yeah? If you have thinking of moving to somewhere else, then you may want to think, these are the convergent points that we need to work together. In the context of leadership, I think this is very important, so that people can then become in unison in taking the change and moving ahead. The discussion, therefore, within ourselves become a discussion that adds to ideas, to fertilize more ideas, to create more new vision, and to endure more vistas as we move forward. And that's the convergence that we need based on the clarity that we have agreed today. And indeed, when I went down to the kuliahs, these were the major ideas. They were putting forward what are the convergent points that we can arrive at with the 17 kuliah and the various departments and the local aspirations that we've got. Will allow us then to creatively think, what is it that we need in the context of our own university, in our own kuliah? Yeah? We pride ourselves as a university in a garden of knowledge and virtue. What sort of knowledge do we want to grow? What sort of virtues that we want to embed? How does these two things work together so that the garden becomes a garden truly of knowledge and virtue? That we become the symbol of those gardens. We are the gardeners that looks after this garden beyond anything that we can imagine. And therefore, this whole idea of a garden and virtue becomes a superior idea for me, because the garden is larger than a university. The garden provides inspiration that is created by God. The garden is a place where we reflect. The garden is a place where we actually find solace sometimes when everything else do not work around ourselves. The garden is a place for inspiration. The garden is a place for us to connect ourselves back to nature and move closely to the Creator. Buildings like this serve its own purpose, but building like this is hardly inspirational. Building like this becomes very, very stereotyped, sometimes also very, dampening in the context where and how it is organized. So we need to realize that we have got this tagline, the garden of knowledge and virtue, that should be moved forward beyond any other things, because no other universities have got this tagline of a garden of knowledge and virtue. And to understand it and how we can root it, so that at the end of the day, we will then find that it is a place for conversation. Yeah? I would like to see more people sitting out in the garden talking about big ideas, talking about what are the things that we need to do forward. Not just to sit down and lay back in the garden and smoke a cigarette, perhaps. This university will be a no-smoking university very soon, inshallah. Yeah? We will try to make that this university is a deserving place for health and security. Yeah? My article today, a small advertisement for me, in the Sun, we talked about, and I in fact named, IIUM must be the first university that takes on no smoking policy, not only because the government says so, but because Islam says and the fatwa around us says that smoking is haram. Yeah? So we probably will have the only university that says no smoking because the government says so, but we will also have another one, smoking is haram, God says so. So there is no need for supervision. Yeah? As much as we don't entertain alcohol, we do not also entertain cigarettes in this university. Inshallah, very soon this will happen. Those are the kind of change that we're looking forward. That is a universal change that talks about a universality of values around the world. The Muslim countries, the Muslim world has been the dumping ground for tobacco, if you want to understand this. Yeah? When tobacco is no longer selling in the developed part of the world, where do they dump their cigarettes? In our shores. And they say smoking is okay. And we accept it as though we do not understand better. So this university needs to tell that the world that smoking is not acceptable under all circumstances, because in a stick of cigarette there is already 4,000 toxic substances. If I sell you today this particular product, cheapest as it is, but I say this one has got 4,000 toxic substances, it costs only 2 ringgit. Would you buy them? If I even give you this free of charge, you know, but it has 4,000 toxic substances in it, will you take them? No. You will not. But why do people spend a lot of money in buying cigarettes, knowing the health hazard of that? So those are the big change that we want to do, and we hope, inshallah, with the kind of sincerity that we've got, we then will fly and live to the team that we've got, leading the way forward. All letters that comes out from the university now must sign on. After thank you, we say leading the way. Just to remind ourselves and also to remind our client that we are here to lead the way, no other ways about it. So I hope you will adopt it in whatever you do, and alhamdulillah, I think the tagline for our website now is also leading the way. But when we say leading the way, be assured that we are leading the way. Don't just say leading the way, but after that we follow everybody else. Yeah? Might as well change the tagline to follow the way. And this is if that's what we want to do. But I think there's no compromise. There's a lot of things that we have talked about that we're going to lead the way, and inshallah, we're going to lead the way. So these are the 5 or 6 things that I think it is important for us to talk about. And I want to put this in a context. After going down to the kuliah, I begin to understand where it is coming from. And I think what we want to do today is basically, first of all, to recognize that integration is important. For your IICE, I think integration is important. But it is important if it is truly and fully integrated. There's no 2 ways about it. Yeah? We want to integrate, but we want to know it is truly integrated and fully integrated. In other words, we take a leading role. We take an active role. We decide on certain rules and certain policies because we believe in certain principles that is important for everybody else to aspire to. It is not a halfway thing. It is not say, oh, because we need to do this, but this one we can compromise. No. If you understand the principle right, we have to be truly and fully integrated into what? Into what we call then the internationalization thing. The word internationalization perhaps needs to be recrafted and understood given the world that has changed so much. The world, and this was crafted maybe 30 years ago, but 30 years since and 30 years hence, I think the world has changed. The Muslim world has suffered a lot more. There wasn't Islamic phobia 30 years ago. Now Islamic phobia is a business. There's a book that talks about people make money by promoting Islamic phobia because they think this is something that can sell. But what do we do about it? And how do we integrate in this whole world that is now hating Muslims for what they believed in and for what they do? And therefore this word internationalization needs to be rethought of and redesigned and reinterpreted in the spirit of being fully integrated. Therefore, Muslim must be in the center of things. The ideas being Islam, being Islamic, must be one of the things that we do. I think gone were the days when people say, go to Japan, you'll find Islam, and come to Malaysia, we'll find Muslims. Yeah? We want to make it sure, come to IIUM, you will find Islam and Muslim at the same time. They are 2 things that is not separable. It's a twin thing that is identical and they must stay together. So, and there are many things that I think we see this dichotomy. We talk about Islam, we are a Muslim, but sometimes it does not jive. Sometimes it even contradicts some of the things that we discussed at the level of kuliah, and I hope this is something that we need to be mindful. We need to walk the talk, being a Muslim and also taking the Islamic ideas and way of life together. Again, no two ways about it. So we want to be fully integrated and truly integrated in the context of internationalization, but that internationalization will not be internationalization alone if it is not guided by the principle of Islam, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. That is the only framework that's left for us to interpret all things in the context of what IIUM is all about. We become the champion of this. We need to be the voice that talks about it, and therefore we lead the way. We lead the way to the only way we know in the context of Tawheed. But as you can see, this diagram is a little bit slanted, because I think we sometimes are still finding the compass of where we need to go in leading the way. Yeah? Let me remind you and remind ourselves that the only way to go is basically to move forward and to realign ourselves back to where it should belong. And that realignment for us is already defined. We know what it is. Anything that moves from this realignment needs to be put right. And that's, again, the nature of this university that tells people where we are in the context of principles, and we are not going to compromise on that principle. So let me be very sure with you, the things that we talked about in the context of integration, Islamization, and also internalization is the footprint where we're going to start this discussion. Right? But I want to remind ourselves, it has to be truly and fully integrated. And therefore, to understand the landscape of the future, to understand what is it about the future, is something that is incumbent upon us. If you don't understand what the future is all about, hardly you can integrate into this, because you do not know what is the landscape moving forward in all dimensions, particularly in the dimensions of knowledge and university per se. Then we become the international Islamic university of Malaysia and of the world. Yeah? Rather than following whatever there is outside there, we need to create the benchmark so that we become the leader as what we want to do, leading the way forward. Yeah? I hope I've clarified that as a kind of a foundation for us to move forward, but also to recognize where we are in trying to make this work in the world to come or in the 21st century. The reality check. Those are nice, lofty ideas of motherhood statements of where we want to be, but look at the reality, where are we? This particular very simple graph tells us, are we dipping? In other words, are we moving backwards? Are we retrogressing? If we are retrogressing, how do we catch up? At what level do you want to catch up? The green line, the red line, or the blue line? Where is the ultimate ambition of being an international and Islamic university? Yeah? Certainly, we need to find where the baseline is. And this is what we have been doing in the last 5 months. And this is what it's about when we visit all the kuliah. Where is the baseline? What sort of comparison can we make the moment we know where the baselines are? Yeah? And that K, the simple dots there, are basically where the kuliah is. Yeah? All these are the kuliah. As you move, we develop the kuliah, and the kuliah must have a baseline somewhere. We are trying to find this baseline now so that that can be a kind of comparison of where we were and where we are going to be ahead of time. We want to create a new status, or a status quo. In other words, coming back to the ideal of this triple I and a CE. Okay, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But for all changes, it's undeniable. Some people will say, why do we need to change? I mean, in fact, some of the comments that I made, we need to change again. Yeah? And some people are full with denial, and some people can also be very sarcastic about this. We accept this because that's human nature the moment you want to talk about change, right? But what we want to do is not to let this kind of denial and chaos take place, we need to quickly come back to the 3 things or the 4 things that I've said before. Be clear about what it is. Let's work together, let's converge, let's grow more ideas so that the change becomes acceptable and it's truly a change, right? And let's also see whether we can create as much conversation as possible. And I hope this conversation will start the moment we finish with this discourse today. Certainly, I hope it has started in many of the kuliahs that we've gone to. Not only within the kuliah, inter-kuliah, yeah, with other people to find out what is the best option that we've got if you really want to move forward and creating this change. And therefore, the elements of getting together, walking the talk, and trying to make this change happen as quickly as possible is something that I think we need to mandate ourselves with, so that at the end of the day, we get this collective change that we are desiring for, right? But for that to happen, the change must be grounded. In other words, the change must be real. The change must be practical. The change must be pragmatic. The change must be within the things that we want to do. The moment we decide for this, there's nothing stopping us. Yeah? But we are still, if it's still ambivalence, whether, oh my God, I need to do this, or I need not to do this, or this instruction from the top, you know, it doesn't work before and therefore it's going to work now. Those are the things that we need to push aside and say, look, I am here and I'm ready to sacrifice myself for the change moving forward, and I think we'll get it made as soon as that happens. Yeah? But there is no choice, there's no other option until and unless we realize that change is so important for us to move ahead. I'm going to craft this change only within a 2-year period, 2019-2020, because I think it is so urgent that we need to demonstrate that we can make the change. We don't have to wait for a 5-year change like politicians do, but we need to do it as soon as possible. So the moment people see changes and it takes place, then I think it boosts up the confidence. It breaks the mindset. It creates more courage, and therefore we can move forward even faster. But to push this is something I think that we need to be wholeheartedly in agreement about it. In the 2 years, what I think is possible is basically to get a recognition from the United Nations University that this university is worthy of what they call the regional centers of expertise on education, but for a different purpose, for sustainable development. Not in the purpose that we understand it, but on a larger context of sustainable development, a concept that probably was not talked about 30 years ago, but now becomes a crucial context because the world is no longer sustainable. The world is no longer the kind of stable world that we know. The world do not have the supply of resources that they used to envisage. The world now is in a chaotic state. And therefore the word sustainability, kelestarian, is an important addendum to this whole agenda of education moving forward, right? We will lead the way because of the 200, there's not many of these regional centers around the world. There's only 200 that have been recognized by United Nations University. There is not a single Islamic university set to say. We aspire, inshallah, to be the first Islamic university that plays a role in these regional centers of expertise sort of network around the world. We will bring the new voice. We will bring the new articulation. We will bring the new aspiration as far as Islam's worldview is concerned, so that education for sustainable development has also got its relevance in the context of where we are moving in the 21st century. And that's the limited ambition that I put in front of us. By 2020, when Malaysia is supposed to be a developed country, doesn't look like it's going to be, but alhamdulillah, at that particular point, IIUM will meet the aspiration of Wawasan 2020 as an institution of higher education. If we can demonstrate that, I think we'll break another mindset, we'll break another vision moving ahead from what Malaysia used to be before the year 2020. So that is the key thing. If we meet that particular expectation, then we have crafted the change that we have set for ourselves to be. But to be a regional centers recognized by United Nations is not going to be simple because their standards are very high. Let me describe to you later on what are their standards. Their standards is basically how do you address what they call Education 2030? In other words, from now on into the year 2030, what are the things that we must do so that it meets the expectation of the year 2030? This is crafted in what they call the Sustainable Development Goal. It talks about 17 other goals that we need to aspire to. Goal number 4 is about education. Goal number 4 talk about inclusive education. Goal number 4 talks about the quality of education that everybody must have. Not only the rich, but also the poor. For that, Alhamdulillah, our friends from banks are here to help us to ensure that education is well disseminated, that the poor are also having opportunity to change their life through education. In sustainable goal number 4, there are 10 sub-themes that we need to aspire to. Some of the sub-themes are very challenging. For example, they talk about how do you bring the disabled into the mainstream? How do you bring people of Orang Asli into the mainstream? How do you bring people who are vulnerable into the mainstream? For IIUM, there is no choice because around us there's already an Orang Asli settlement. Behind us there's kampung, many kampungs. Kampung Sungai Pusu is one of them. Have we touched them? Have we brought them to mainstreams? Have we then created equality in terms of opportunity for the Orang Asli and the kampung people? We have not, then this is what Education 2030 is all about. We need to then change our understanding of what education in the context of Islamization, in the context of internationalization, in the context of integration, the 3 things that we talked about. We cannot be talking about these 3 things when the people in Sungai Pusu are all left on their own. What integration are we talking about? We are so much into internationalization. Who looks after our backyard? Is that Islamization in the totality that we talked about? Those questions comes back to haunt us in the context of how we understand it. But Vision 2030 talks about this is the way to go. And therefore we need to embrace it. If it's not against the Islamic principle, and make it work, show them that Islam is also part of this vision, moving education 2030, and we want to lead the way in this particular context. Yeah? So if that's the kind of end point that you want to arrive at, United Nations Regional Centers are expertise for sustainable development, there are many things that we need to consider. And this is what some of the discussion we had in the kuliah, in a kind of a shortcut way, because we don't have time to talk about the theory and the nitty-gritty of it. First, we need to put ourselves right. In other words, trying to understand IICE, yeah, in the context of a larger dimension, which is the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. That is something that needs to go together. Yeah? And I've been told, and I've been educated, alhamdulillah, that the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan apparently start with a discussion on the 3 I's of international integration and also Islamization, and the kind of things that is put in the context of how we balance education for a human being. Last year, 5th and 16th November, for the first time, we had a workshop on falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, officiated by the minister. Yeah? 10 papers were presented, 3 from international audience coming in, right? But alhamdulillah, out of that, we have now come up with a book. Yeah? Penafsiran baru falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan dan pelaksanaannya. They had more than 10 more chapters, there are 20 chapters here, talking about the whole dimension of falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. For the first time in 13 years, IIUM has taken the lead. Yeah? IIUM has taken the lead in such that when the minister gave his speech in Monday, last Monday, second item that he talks about after Wawasan 2020 is falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. I am of the opinion that the kuliah of education and all the other kuliah must then now become the champion of this. All of us here will have to understand what the falsafah is all about, back to back, end to end, cover to cover. We cannot be talking about falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan and not knowing what it's all about. What are the elements of the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan that makes us unique as an education institution within Malaysia and internationally? So what we're going to do now is basically to try to cascade this forward, so that everybody from the janitor right up to the rector understand it in a single way that we need to understand it. The first thing that we need to understand, I'll just mention the first one. Dalam falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, dia mengatakan bahawa kita hendak mewujudkan manusia seimbang dan harmonis. So we don't have to talk about wasatiyah, we don't have to talk about kesederhanaan, we don't have to talk about moderation, because falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan sudah mengatakan we want to produce human being that is basically balanced and harmonious. Terima kasih. Maknanya if we've embedded this 30 years ago, we probably would not have this problem of bullying, sexual harassment, corruption, unethical practices, because we are the manusia yang seimbang dan harmonis as the Quran wanted us to be, as a Muslim should be. But we have neglected this for 30 years. We cannot neglect it anymore. We want to bring it into fore, and we will then do this. We will look back at our curriculum, the kind of pedagogy we have, the kind of ecosystem we have. Adakah ini semua seimbang dan harmonis untuk mendahului pelajar-pelajar seimbang dan harmonis, kaki tangan yang seimbang dan harmonis, rektor yang seimbang dan harmonis, menteri yang seimbang dan harmonis, Perdana Menteri yang seimbang dan harmonis. If it doesn't go cascading down, I think we have lost it somewhere. And education, therefore, becomes the linchpin or ensuring this to happen. We would be the voice of saying this is tidak seimbang dan harmonis, we need to therefore change it. It becomes an amanah now to take this on if you want to see your IICE works on in the context of falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan rooted in this particular university. So we need to do that homework first, because that homework, I think, will link us directly to the 17 Sustainable Development Goal, whether we like it or not. And in fact, we have written another book, Pembangunan Lestari, tentang menggunakan konsep maqasid asyariah, because that's the next thing that we need to do. Dalam kita bercakap tentang the Sustainable Development Goal, di mana letaknya elemen-elemen Islam, unsur-unsur Islam, kefahaman Islam? Kita mengatakan bahawa it is at par, if not maqasid syariah is better than them. This book argues that. This book says that maqasid syariah, if you understand it the way it is even better than sustainable development goal. We can tell the world that something we have got within Islam long before is better than what we have got now. But we have not done so. In fact, we are more noted as people who are not sustainable. Because if you look at the Islamic countries, the richer they are, the worse they are in terms of sustainability. We don't have to name these countries, but you know. You go to some of these places because we have to go there, because we need to know some things in this particular country, but that's the worst country in the context of sustainable development. In other words, if we say sustainable development and maqasid syariah is going hand in hand, we find that we are not even there in the context of believing and putting maqasid syariah as part of the development agenda in any countries around the world. That is the kind of discourse that we need to do. And this university then will be again the demonstrating point that maqasid syariah and sustainable development goes hand in hand. Alhamdulillah, that is a kind of project that we need to launch, inshallah, by March this year. We are making ready to find out what we have done and therefore project ourselves as the university that takes these two things into ambit. So once we do this, then we can complete the loop. We can go to the world and say we have done our homework and we think this is a better alternative than what we do. And that's a discourse, I think, that I'm looking forward to moving on from now and forward. In other words, every kuliah needs to imbibe on this discourse and understanding of where this is all placed. the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, the maqasid asyariah, and also the sustainable development. These are three agendas that will redefine internationalization, that will redefine integration, that will then strengthen what we call Islamization. We have not run away from what the university is all about, only that we have now made it more relevant, make it more acceptable at the universal, or if not civilizational, sort of platform. Yeah? So all kuliah then will need to do this. And this is what we're saying when you go down to the kuliah and say, give us your agenda based on these three elements of falsafah, the maqasid, and also the sustainable development goal. Right? Hopefully this will happen. Yeah? And then we can tell them within this university, the 17 goals are all covered, because every kuliah now has got their own sort of preference of what are the 17 goals they need to meet. We can easily tell them that we are fully on board as far as sustainable development goal, fully integrated in this international agenda that was pronounced by United Nations in the year 2016 in New York, yeah, September. As always, the question is how. And therefore, we try to get into the nitty-gritty of this and say, if this is what you want to do, there are certain things that you need to make changes. You have a new strategy, you must have a new structure. If you have a new strategy, your structure remains old, then it will not happen. Pakatan Baru has a new strategy, and therefore they need to have a new structure, and therefore they talk about institutional reform, because that reform is important for that strategy to work. They cannot have a new strategy and live on the old structure that is corrupted and unethical. It will not work. Same here. We want to have a new strategy, we need to create a new platform. And I'm suggesting there are two platforms that we need to create. One is at the level of the kuliah itself, and the other one is at the level of the university, moving internationally using that particular platform. Let me try and explain this. So we talk about what are the changes that we want to do so that the structures then will follow suit. The first change we want to do is to create this shared platform. Yeah? I may be wrong, but from what is observed, we are in this kind of a mode today. Yeah? We are very siloed. These are the kuliahs. Maybe you are part of the kuliah, the student of the kuliah. Do you feel that you're actually integrating with the other kuliah? If you're from KOE, are you basically talking to people with co-ed or ca-ed for that matter? Yeah? Or even in the reveal knowledge and human sciences? Do you have that flexibility of mobility from kuliah to kuliah to discuss different dimensions, different ideas from different disciplines that makes you the whole balanced person that we talked about? Do you have that? If we don't, then I think we say that this must go. You cannot any longer live in a world of isolation. You cannot any longer live in a world of silos, because the world is such an integrated world, a globalized world that needs connectivity everywhere and anywhere. Yeah? And for that, we are suggesting that we need to adopt what we call the tetrahedron model. What is this model about? The model is about connectivity. All the four phases of this model are interconnected with one another. In other words, you're free to move. You're free to tap ideas. You're free to tap knowledge. You're free to actually exchange them with anybody that you are interested in. Doesn't mean you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be engineer for life. A time will come that you will take a leading role. When you take a leading role, you become less than an engineer, you become more of a leader. And where do you learn that? You will not be able to learn this in the kuliah, because the kuliah sometimes are so packed with so many things. We need to do this outside the kuliah. We need to do this in the garden. We need to do this outside the community, where you begin to engage yourself as a human person that will take that leadership role. This is what we want to attempt, moving in and taking this tetrahedron model so that you can now move from one place to another, tapping the best potential of yourself to make that human being. And if this model is done in such a way, it can be a very creative model. yet it remains connected, to come back to those ideas that knowledge is one. And this is where the convergence is. Ilmu itu adalah satu, hanya kita pecah-pecahkan saja untuk memudahkan pengurusannya. Tetapi it cannot remain separated. It has to be connected because knowledge is one, and that's the knowledge of God. And we move from that point of view, then you find that you are better in the context of commanding knowledge and becomes that person that is balanced and harmony. How does this work? We say, look, there is this tetrahedron, then we need to define what are the platforms. Our old discussion, we say there are 4 platforms that we need to create. The first platform is the most fundamental when you talk about change. Transformation of the human person and the community he is. Everybody talks about it. The bank talks about it. The bank talks about how do you change person from the kind of equity and the acceptability we give them. So that this person then can change his own society. And that is transformational change where education becomes an important tool for us to do. Education is not about just standing alone, as I've mentioned, and being in status quo. We don't talk about change, and the change is this transformation. So the first platform is about human and social transformation. To help that change is basically we also want to be mindful that the transformation is sustainable. The transformation is not into something chaotic and something unstable. And therefore this concept of sustainability must come in. And sustainability has a lot to do with the life sciences, the natural environment around us. Some of the things that the Quran mentions, he said, look at the mountain, they are stable. How do you learn from that? What sort of knowledge can we get by looking at the mountain and how mountain is stable? And he said, look at the sky. Yeah, it's your canopy, but it doesn't collapse like the roof of any buildings. What sort of inspiration can we get from this kind of lessons that God has told us? And we need then, therefore, to connect ourselves to the environment, and this is where the concept of garden becomes crucial again for us to appreciate and admire in terms of getting new ideas and new spirits from this. Yeah? Of course, we can't run away from technology. Technology sometimes will help us to build the stability one way or another if we've handled it well. Yeah? So we need to understand what technology is all about in the context of sustainability and transformation. But last but not least, the one that we have lost, education without soul, we need to bring it back. And that's where we talk about spirituality. And incidentally, the world now is moving into what they call the post-material world. In other words, nobody believes that the world is just about materialism anymore. There's a whole group of people, including well-known scholars, talk about post-material world and post-material studies, including post-material science. There's a group of them, but in that group, there's hardly any Muslims. Yeah? Go to internet and Google post-material declaration. You find there's a group of very keen scholars, but not a single Muslim. Again, in terms of fully and truly integrated, we are not there. As people take these ideas forward, our vision, our worldview, and our articulation is not there. We are left out again. And therefore, we need to scramble later on when everything is built and say, hey, where is Islam? Because we have neglected our amanah in this particular context. And hence, we think this is the other platform that we need to create, that you need to subscribe to one way or the other. So we are encouraging every kuliah to subscribe to this platform apart from your domain platform, engineering, whatever. Yeah? And if many of these platforms are subscribed by the kuliah, then we can form another shared platform that moves a new discipline forward, pushing the boundary of knowledge and trying to explore what the new world is all about in the context of moving forward and leading the way. Yeah? For that, we are encouraging people to be cross or joint appointees. So although you are an engineer, you may want to be part of different faculty or kuliah, so that you can begin to talk across boundaries across platforms. Yeah? So these the other thing that we are telling the kuliah to understand, that you need to break these silos, come into a shared platform so that people can begin to talk to one another and mobilize knowledge the way forward, the way we think it should be done. That then will be, inshallah, the flagship of every kuliah. You then can be an authority in a particular area that other people have not ventured into. Another area that we are now to explore and to make so that it belongs to us, then we become the leader of that particular flagship, as it were. So I am expecting by March, every kuliah now has got its own flagship. So I can tell, as far as this flagship is concerned, this is what IIUM is all about. We are an authority, we are an expert, we know what is out, and we then will be referred, as what the minister once said. For the kind of flagship that we have created, based on knowledge, not based on politics, not based on money, those are important, but the knowledge base is the one that's going to move it. The rest becomes incidental in the way we want to look at it that way. Yeah? So this is one criteria that needs to be fulfilled before we can move into the area of sustainable development. I will just roughly say that the whole idea was basically to humanize education again. Menginsankan pendidikan, memanusiakan pendidikan, seperti lagi sekali yang dikata oleh Yang Berhormat Menteri, bukan saja 3M, membaca, menulis dan mengira, tetapi juga memanusiawikan pendidikan itu sendiri, supaya pelajar-pelajar dan siapa saja yang keluar daripada universiti adalah manusia yang seimbang dan harmonis, seperti mana yang kita katakan dalam falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. To summarize, this is where we are. Everybody on a separate sort of journey, with a separate idea of what university and what they are all about. So there's hardly interaction. Yeah? Sometimes we try to do this, work with one another, but still we are separated. Sometimes we interact, but still we are separated. What we want to do is to share this platform, to break all walls, to break all boundaries, to break all mindsets so they can work as one, back to the whole Tawhidic knowledge that we are one, and the convergence is supposed to happen via knowledge and not nothing else. Yeah? So the mindset then needs to be opened up, that you need to move from that. I'm not a single person anymore, but I'm the collective of so many others within this university, so that this model of tetrahedron can take place, but not only in terms of structures, more importantly bagi saya, in terms of doing it among ourselves. Yeah? So academics do not just work among academics. The academics now needs to work together with the administrators and the people around them. Yeah? Pembahagian di antara akademik dengan pentadbiran ni, saya rasa something which is artificial, sometimes gone overboard. Right? The academics somehow rather got a better deal as compared to the administrators, when the administrators themselves are experts in their own field. They are also postgraduate students sometimes. Yeah? They also have got experiences that we do not have. But yet when we talk about moving forward, they are normally left behind. Yeah? I've got my own experience in my licensed institution where people, the sweeper comes to me and advise. Yeah? Penyapu jalan pernah datang mengata pada saya bahawa kalau nak sapu jalan dengan cara baik, guna penyapu buruh, jangan penyapu lidi. I have to listen to him because he has got 30 years of experience. I have zero experience in sweeping roads. I may be the vice chancellor, I may be a professor, but as far as sweeping road is concerned, he is the expert. And therefore we need to respect that. Our fathers, our mothers are all not educated, but they brought us up as a human being. Sometimes we even fail to do this for our own children. So let not get away with all this idea of pangkat and derajat and certification and what have you. That is just one of the things. The knowledge that people have in their mind are basically more important. And this way, when we approach the community, we need to be mindful of that. That the community are just as educated as we are. The Orang Asli has got other ways of looking at things that we do not have. And therefore, we be humble enough to learn from them And that makes this university great the moment we open out our doors and our minds to all sorts of knowledge that comes beyond what we know within the libraries and also the university building. Yeah? Then we go back to these collective ideas of being one, not only in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of the community, the Ummah. I was asked yesterday, how do you unify the university? And the answer was very simple: break down the walls. Begin to recognize other people. The moment you do this, you will get the universities unified very, very easily. The second platform is to understand where the Maqasid al-Sharia is all about. Yeah? The 5 or the 6 elements, some people 5, 6, some people say 4, doesn't really matter. Yeah? By the end of the day, how does this contribute to the understanding of balance and harmony, the sustainability and all the rest of it? It is something, again, that we need to sit down and think hard and find out where is our role in trying to move this forward. Rather than looking at the Maqasid as something which is linear or hierarchical, can we look at the Maqasid as something which is secular? In other words, we can start at any point, but we will arrive at the same point. Right? We can start at wealth, but then you contribute to life, and life will contribute to progeny. Progeny will create more wealth, and so on and so forth. Can we think along differently rather than just looking at linear, so that at the end of the day, we will get a different concept. The concept of Maqasid that is spiral. Yeah? When you talk about the 5 elements and you try to connect this to another tier of the sustainable development that talks about the 5 elements also, but using different lingo and different languages. Yeah? Instead of life, they talk about peace. In other words, the life that we're going to create under Maqasid must be a peaceful one. The life cannot be an aggressive one. The life cannot be built on vengeance. It has to be peaceful, and that's what Islam is all about. When you talk about intellect, it has to be intellectual of the people that creating ideas, making things possible to get this peaceful and harmonic life. Yeah? When you talk about progeny, it's about the future of the planet. We create this new generation. Where are they going to live if the planet is not safe and it's not peaceful? The same argument. We create wealth. What is this wealth all about if it is not equally distributed? If people are not getting what they are supposed to get? If the disparity between the rich and the poor getting wider and wider all the time? And this is where I really admire what Bank Rakyat is trying to do. Trying to create this knowledge and try to, narrow the gap. And for that, I think we need faith that talks about inter-dialogue, so that the peace that we want to create becomes visible. So we create another dimension using Maqasid into a kind of a spiral movement moving forward. Yeah? When we talk about this, we also talk about how we actually can relate to higher goals when we talk about internalization, integration in this particular context. Something for you to think about, something that I've proposed to the Kuliah of Economics and Management Science to work on this, whether there is a new idea that we can put forward on a secular model rather than just on a linear growth model. It is something I think that university needs to do. Yeah? So coming back to this, we then talk about another platform which was there before. Before we relate to the platform 1 and platform 2, what is that? That is what we call the 3ICE. That talks about comprehensive excellence. I've been asking around, what is this comprehensive excellence? It's difficult enough to achieve excellence, yeah? But you are telling me comprehensive excellence. What is comprehensive excellence? Who has defined this? Is it achievable to start off with? If you're struggling with excellence, comprehensive excellence may be a far dream ahead of us. But yes, we have committed to this. And how do you then redefine the so-called comprehensive excellence? My simple take on this is basically to come back together. Comprehensive means you need to be united. You cannot be comprehensive when you are on your own. If the Kuliah stands on its own, they can never be comprehensive, let alone excellence in this particular context. So we need to understand the idea of moving together in this shared platform. And what is that shared platform then at the end of the day? Talks about the 3 things. Yeah? the internationalization, in the integration, and also the Islamization, that will equate to comprehensive excellence. You need to have these three things of truly integrated in an international world based on Islamic framework. Then I think we could approach the whole idea of comprehensive excellence. It does not exist on its own. It is an outcome of what we do in the process of integrating, internationalizing, and also Islamization in this particular context. Yeah? So my point is this, therefore, we need to now to start working on this platform to understand my own understanding of what integration is all about, yeah, is to come back to what we have talked before. How can we be transdisciplinary, break down walls as far as education and discipline is concerned? The convergence of knowledge, trying to find where knowledge basically sets in and the elements of the Tawhidic understanding. For that, we have to have this culture of Iqra, which is part of our song. Yeah? We must read, read, read. And Minister have been telling this, yeah? Membaca. How many books can you read in a year? 12 means once a month. 6 means 1 in 2 months. 3. But do we read at all? Yeah? And this is the issue. Iqra is about reading, building knowledge, so that the knowledge can be transdisciplinary, so that we can transpire into something else that we have not heard before. Right? How can we break down the barriers? The moment you start reading, you find that the world is not an isolated world, the world is a bigger world. Then you have no qualms in breaking down knowledge. Yeah? If the scientists understand what humanity is all about, when science is dried up of humanities and human values, then you begin to appreciate what humanity's social science is all about. But we need to start by reading, and this is what Muslims are supposed to do. Yeah? Then you find that the whole garden opens up. That the library is not enough anymore, that knowledge is everywhere, as long as you are able to reach it and understand what it is all about. Yeah? From that integration, then I think we then can meaningfully move into internationalization. Internationalization, I say, is about mobility. Mobility has happened in Islamic way in the most fundamental and the most changeable way when you talk about hijrah. What is hijrah to us? It's about sacrifice, it's about sharing, it's about making good of what other people do not have. All these values, are they in internalization, or is internalization another mode of making money? That we bring international students here and we charge them a fee that they cannot afford, and we say this internalization, it is an economic imperative rather than an educational imperative. Are we a corporate body that makes money, or are we an institutional that actually spread knowledge? Something that we need to decide. Yeah? But internalization now, today, as it is, from my point of view, is about creating revenue. And that's why IPTS prosper, IPTA do not prosper. Because we don't have the avenue of making money from internalization, not the way that IPTS has been doing. So we need to decide what is internalization for us. Yeah? If you want to go the way of making money, then is it Islamic to do so? If it is not Islamic, we need to think back. How can we do this? And there must be a way to do it. Because the first university in the world is the University of Karayan at 859, built by a lady 1,200 years ago and still surviving in the context of Waqaf. Al-Azhar is the next one. But where is Waqaf in our midst? We do not have that. Can we go back and find out Waqaf is part of internalization or internationalize Waqaf in this particular context? Those are the homework that we need to do if we want to be fully and truly integrated in this particular context. Then we can talk about Rahmatan lil Alameen. You cannot talk about Rahmatan lil Alameen if you cannot even have that here when people are having all sorts of disparities. Yeah? So it becomes a kind of a pipe dream in this particular context. Where is the civilizational aspiration? at the end of the day when you talk about the Ummah? Are we just talking about Malaysian? Are we just talking about Gombak or Kuantan or Pago? Where is the limit that we need to talk about in the context of the civilization of Islam in this particular context? If you don't have that context, then you cannot be hardly a benchmark, because the Islamic entity, the Islamic aspiration is not enshrined into what we want to do. Yeah? And finally, we cannot move beyond the university. The word university alone is already a misnomer for me, but that's for another discussion. Yeah? The Jami'ah is a better word, but we are stuck with the word university, which in a sense is translated as a trustee of the European humanist tradition. Can we live with that? If we cannot, then we must find some other way out in this particular context. Yeah? And then we begin to look at what Islamization is all about. Yeah? And I have some critical understanding of this. Although we talk about Islamization, it's about knowledge integration and so on and so forth, my fundamental question is Islamization being practiced? In the way we live ourselves, are we Islamized, quote unquote, enough? The punctuality, the honesty, the courageousness to talk, the cleanliness, the hygiene, are these not about Islamization? When you go to the canteen, is this an acceptable canteen from the Islamic standard of halal and tayyiban? If it's not, then what do you do about it? If you go to your toilets and your bathrooms, are these within the standards of Islamization? The punctuality that we practice, is this within the standard of Islam? Forget about the knowledge for the time being. The way we live ourselves, the way we make ourselves visible, so that people don't go and talk about, go to Japan and see Islam, come to Malaysia and see Muslims that do not practice Islam. This is a university that wants to demonstrate that Islam and Muslim are together. Each of you become the symbol of that the moment you associate yourself with IIUM. We cannot say IIUM people can come late in any meetings or in any events that is already determined at a particular time. You have not gone into Islamization, although you may have got a degree from the Kuliah of Revealed Knowledge and Human Science, you have failed to practice it. And this failure is something that we cannot live with it anymore. And the change must come now, so that we are convinced that we can do it, and other people can be more convinced that we can do it. There's no alternative for this. And that's one of the major change that we want to talk about before we even talk about integration and internationalization. You go to an international meeting as a Muslim, you come half an hour late, they kick you out. Only in places where Islam is practiced, they will tolerate you. Mesyuarat pukul 8 mula, tapi sebenarnya mula pukul 10. I've gone through that experience. And for the foreigners, they are baffled. Yeah, if they say, I know if you're going to start 2 hours late, I'll probably sleep two more hours. And that's an embarrassment for us. I went to a particular consultation in Africa. My counterpart was an European. Our driver is an African, a Muslim African. And this European tells the driver, he said, tomorrow 8 o'clock. And the driver said, Inshallah. He says, no, Inshallah. Be here at 8 o'clock. Don't blame God for what you are going to do tomorrow. People have become so skeptical over the things that we value. Inshallah is something that we value. But the non-Muslim find this almost nonsensical, because we use Inshallah as a cover-up for our own weaknesses. These are issues, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that is confounding us. The moment you go into an international arena, you'll find the embarrassment right in front of your face, being a Muslim, not living as a Muslim. And there's no two ways about it. We need to make this change now, and I hope we are all into this in the context of moving forward. Until that is happened, then the amanah that we talked about is just another hearsay. Yeah? We are not holding to the amanah that we are supposed to hold in the context of it. We are not even the Khalifa. We are not the role model of a Khalifa. We are not the exemplar. We are not the one that sets the pace of where we want to move forward, because we are not practicing what we are supposed to practicing. Yeah? Engaging and engage. Now, how do you engage? When the kampong people talk to us, they say, you are equally late, you may have got a degree, but you are no better than us. Sometimes they are even more punctual than we are. And therefore, we find that this whole idea of being balanced and harmonic becomes a farce. And we fail actually to demonstrate it in the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. So my suggestion is basically, we need to start that first before we move into that. And then we automatically move into that. And this becomes then a cycle. And that's a change that I think we need to decide. This is almost an individual decision. The kuliah will not be able to enforce it. The university will not be able to enforce it. If a lecturer chose to come late, what can we do? But then you are now accountable for your own amanah. If the students want to do something that is beyond what the university, there are thousands of you, we are not able to supervise you. You need now to supervise yourself, and this is where Islamization has its own root taking place in yourself, as what the university wants you to do. So, for that, we want to go back to this whole idea of the falsafah, revisit it, understand it, and how does it connect to what we call the 4 pillars of learning of UNESCO. The 4 pillars of learning UNESCO tells us 4 things: learning to do, learning to know, learning to be, learning to live together. But all institutions in this country, in fact all over the world, talks only about 2, learning to know and learning to do. We have never told who we are learning to be. And therefore, we do not know how to live together when you go into an international arena. And therefore, orang Melayu, when they go to UK, they will stay in a kampong of their own. They have no confidence to go and venture into other cultures, which is more demanding and challenging in the context of Islam. Yeah? We have failed as an educated person to spread the amanah, to be the da'wah, to do the da'wah the way we want to do it. Because we don't have those 2 skills of learning to be and learning to live together. How do you connect this? And how do you bring it back in the context of sustainability and the 17 development goals? This is now tasked to all the kuliah that we've been, try to rework this and find out how you can convey this to the students immediately, because you will be the new generations to come that will have to have this. Yeah? A small just demonstration. When you talk about learning to know, you're using your head. This is the knowledge that you've got. Learning to do is about using your hands, the skill, the motor, the psychomotor in terms of learning. Yeah? But learning to be is about learning your qalb, the heart. It's not about skills, neither is about knowledge. It's about attitude, it's about understanding, it's about awareness, it's about value. Right? You can talk about EQ, IQ, you talk about EQ, SQ. Yeah? By the end of the day, if you want to live together, it is about the whole thing integrated. Tangan kepala dengan jiwa ataupun hati ataupun nurani. Yeah? And that is what makes us human. And that is what humanizing education means. That we are the total person that talks about who we are and what we are. Yeah? And in the context of the human person, the attitude, the value, sikap, nilai menjadi perkara-perkara yang penting that talks about the complete person. This is the word used by United Nations, by UNESCO. We use seimbang dan harmonis, they use the word complete person. And complete person dalam konteks falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan bercakap tentang kesejahteraan diri. Satu lagi konsep yang kita mungkin tidak dapat huraikan pada hari ini, tetapi sudah tentu penting. What is sejahtera to us? Salam sejahtera, sejahtera Malaysia, Kedah sejahtera, tandas sejahtera di Kelantan. Yeah? What is this sejahtera? Di mana kita tahu sama ada kita ada kesejahteraan diri ke tidak, supaya kita menjadi manusia imbang dan harmonis? Bagaimana kita ukur itu? Bagaimana kita pupuk dan asuhnya? Ini adalah sebahagian daripada pendidikan. Dan kalau pendidikan tidak faham apa itu sejahtera, dan pendidikan tidak akan sampai kepada kemuncak. Dan kita berbalik-balik kepada soal maqasid syariah untuk memahami apa itu sejahtera. Inilah di antara perkara-perkara yang saya rasakan IIUM mempunyai kepakaran dan juga keazaman untuk membantu dan membangun pendidikan ala baru dalam dunia baru, Malaysia baru. It's an opportunity right in front of us. If you don't grab it, I think somebody else will do. Because there is a university that is specifically just for education. I don't have to mention names. The moment we neglect this, I think that university will come and fill in the vacuum, and we lost another great opportunity. Yeah? I'm going to stop a little bit more, and I'll just finish this up by saying that there are the changes that we need to do also. In research and innovation, very quickly, it is now called responsible research and innovation. The word responsible indicates, Ustaz Zamri, bila kita buat research dengan bank rakyat dulu, thank you for giving us 800,000, let me announce, I think it's a pride of joy working with you. Kita mengatakan bahawa the research yang kita buat adalah responsible kerana kesudahannya we're involved what we call the public engagement. Kita merujuk kepada masyarakat. Apa yang masyarakat hendak, kita akan cuba tepati untuk memperbaiki hidup mereka. So dalam projek Mizan yang kita buat antara USIM dengan Bank Rakyat, kita sudah menubuhkan satu konsep bagaimana kita membangunkan keseimbangan dalam kampung-kampung yang ada. And the last try is about how to save kampung baru, so that kampung baru do not follow the roots of Abdullah Hukum and also kampung Kurinci. We cannot lose that Malay heritage, the Islamic heritage in the midst of a city. How do we save it? And this is the role of university. Yeah? And that is where this responsible research comes in, that we take the consideration of the people who will benefit from the research, so that the research will be returned back to them as a kind of a give back in the kind of work that we do. Yeah? For that, it also says that we must be open access. Maknanya you don't just publish in small articles in a journal somewhere, Scopus or be it what, but you also need to share it in open access, that everybody now can access your work. Not only 3 or 4 people, not only 1,000 people, that the whole million of people will now know IIUM, what research ini, and they are free to criticize it. And therefore, the limits of quality has no borders. Because if thousands of eyes are looking at the work we do, or the thing that I'm going to convey to you, they will be criticizing us if we don't do it right. And for a university of this stature, not to do it right is an utter embarrassment. Otherwise, we will not be international, less so Islamic. We cannot afford that. And therefore, we need to be very mindful of what quality is about in terms of accuracy, and also all the things that needs to be understood in the context of ethics and knowledge. You don't plagiarize, because that is already unethical. You don't tumpang. Just because you're a lecturer, you tumpang you punya postgraduate punya publication. That is not ethical. You don't tell our friends, oh, you can plagiarize this and just footnote that I allow you to do this. That is unheard of. But yet it happens. And this university must stop those kind of practices if you want to remain fully integrated in the international world. Otherwise, you are regarded as a pariah in terms of knowledge seeking. Those are the things that is now right in front of us. And in that engagement, we also say, if you want to talk about how the community wants to know, you need to be engaged with the community. Yeah? In some of the discussion at the kuliah, some people were saying, we are not welcome into the community because you do not know the ethics of the community. We are so corporate in our thinking. Kita ada corporate marketing, corporate communication, but the kampung people are not corporate. Yeah? And therefore the skills we have is not what it takes us to go into the kampung. The kampung talks about humility. The kampung talks about balance. The kampung talks about compassion. Here we are about arrogance. Yeah, we know everything. Hire a doctorate ini universiti saya itu dan ini, I know better, you better follow what I said. When you go to the kampung, you're humble because they know better than you are. And that's a skill that we need to have. And that's what engagement is all about. And that's why kita mengatakan pembangunan pelajar dan libat sama masyarakat. Kerana pelajar-pelajar kita perlu dididik juga. Bukan saja masuk kepada bangunan besar, menara-menara besar dengan tempat-tempat yang berhawa dingin, tetapi bagaimana juga kita membawa diri dalam tempat yang tidak ada benda pun. Yang tidak ada kerusi. Yang kadang-kadang tidak ada, hanya pondok saja. Macam mana kita membawa diri kita dalam konteks itu. That is the balanced person that this university wants to produce, not just the other side of what the industry tells us what to do. Yeah? And therefore we talk about, mentioned this before, we need to revisit. For the whole of next year, we need to start a program with Kampung Sungai Pusu. Every kuliah should have a program that also upgrade the Kampung Sungai Pusu at the same time. Yeah? Masyarakat orang asli, kalau di Kuantan kita bercakap tentang Felda. Felda patut membangunkan generasi kedua dan ketiga yang lebih baik daripada bapa dan datuknya. Tapi adakah ini berlaku di Felda sekarang? Adakah generasi kedua, ketiga Felda lebih baik daripada bapa dengan ataupun datuk? Kalau tidak, di mana salahnya? Apa yang universiti boleh buat untuk membantu mereka ini menjadi baik, lebih baik daripada bapa dan datuk? Kalau tidak, kita gagal lagi sekali dalam membangunkan masyarakat kita, dalam menggunakan ilmu yang ada pada kita. Yeah? So I will just go quickly. We have changed certain things. I think this we'll talk about it later, because time is very limited. We have changed the way we communicate. We want to advocate certain things. Yeah? We want to tell them this is what the university is all about. And that advocacy comes from the kind of passion that we got in our kuliah. And that advocacy is about change. Change on the knowledge behavior, so that we can be advanced. Yeah? And that change also takes on the kind of structures within the university. Some of the structures in the university may need to go because they are 35 years old and they are no longer functioning. We need to replace them, just like we replace old buildings so that it can be better understood and better served. I've talked about this, and let me try and conclude this. Yeah? A very busy slides. Yeah? Tapi kesudahannya kita merasakan bahawa keterangkuman, the inclusiveness, the shared kuliah, to me becomes the starting point. And that shared kuliah, to me, is about arriving at this comprehensive excellence as a university, taking the three elements of integration, internalization, and Islamization, not only in words, but also in action at the same time. Right? Then the tree will grow, the flower will grow, the garden will grow, and the changes will be fully grounded. Fully grounded means it is institutionalized. It doesn't matter who is the dean now, it doesn't matter who is the rector now, it doesn't matter who is the minister now, it doesn't matter who is the government now. We are enrooted by our own values and our own virtues in our own garden of knowledge and virtues. We determine our own destiny. We decide on what we want to do, because we are more confident now in the masywarah and the muafakat that moves into what we call this comprehensive excellence that has been there for a long time. Yeah? We expect the kuliah to do a lot of things, yeah? Trying to make a difference, trying to be recognized, and also trying to be prudent. Part of sustainability is trying to be prudent. We have got these other things. I think we have been distributed this. Yeah? This is about how we want to look at it in the technical terms, the balance scorecard. Don't have time to do it, but basically it's about moving from learning to the aspiration that we want to go into, right? Using the shared platform, again, in this particular context. Another way of looking at it, while we want to grow the tree, we want to be mindful that these principles of falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan in the context of balance is important. And that balance is now reflected in the virtues that we're going to promote and practice in this particular country, and in the particular university that is in line with the Maqasid Sharia in this particular context. Yeah? I want to conclude very quickly. This is where we are now. Everything is in siloed. Yeah, everybody is about themselves. We are saying that this must change, and how does the change goes to? We want to move into that shared platform number one, that we take people looking at togetherness in terms of outcome. Yeah, we begin to see the overlaps between kuliah, and that overlaps must be taken further when we talk about the bigger goal of United Nations on regional centers of expertise and sustainable development goal. It has to be demonstrated not only within an institution or a country, it has to be demonstrated it is relevant globally. That's where you'll be fully integrated in the whole idea of internationalization. Yeah? We hope by then we are able to complete this understanding of where Islam is when we talk about sustainable development. It's not just something that's given to us the way we are taken by the 4IR, misalnya. Fourth Industrial Revolution, there's really hardly any discussion from the Islamic perspective that we think this is a solution moving forward. I have a different thinking altogether, that the 4IR could be the demise of Muslim and the human being per se. So inshallah, within 2 years, if we work hard enough, hopefully by middle of next year, we will arrive at what we want to do at the status quo, making RCE as a flagship, recognized by United Nations University. That's the facade of the building in Tokyo, all right? That we will be fully in charge of what the vision of Education 2030 is all about, moving forward to the year 2030 and taking back on these 4 pillars of learning, particularly learning to be and learning to live together. Here, sometimes I see that the Malaysian students are only with the Malaysian students. The Malaysian students are highly integrated with the international student, despite there are 7,000 of them. And the international student, in the same way, sometimes can hardly speak Bahasa Malaysia. Why are you in Malaysia when you cannot speak Bahasa Malaysia? When you go to London, you will speak English better than your own mother tongue. When you go to Japan, you learn Japanese, whether you like it or not. But in Malaysia, you have the luxury not to learn the language. I think you have missed another point of being internationalized. Yeah? Just to remind ourselves, 600 million people spoke Bahasa Malaysia just within this region. And that's a big number. Sometimes they say it's bigger than the Arab-speaking world. But we do not promote Bahasa Malaysia the way we promote Arabic. What's wrong with us? Yeah? English, people say, are very good. But one native English speaker has got 5 non-native English speakers. We, the non-Mat Saleh, is the one that's promoting their language. Yeah? Leave it to the Mat Saleh, they have no numbers to promote their language. It's okay that we can promote their language, but don't neglect our language, because our language is also international and also has its own values in terms of civilization and the cultural dimension, and that's what ISTEC is about. Yeah? So the moment you integrate that, I think you'll go into this comprehensive excellence that we talk about, built on the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. And the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan hopefully will nurture this collective change that we want to do, and that becomes what the new structures are all about. Yeah? The OQM now is known as Center for Knowledge Change and Advancement. Yeah? The OCS now is known as the Office of Strategy and Institutional Change. And of course, the most important is the Center for Communication, Advocacy and Promotion. Until we advocate, until we tell the world what we want to do, until they can see what we want to do, we will not be existent. A case in point is a website. You go to a website and you see the website has not changed. For 3 days, you know this particular organization is slipping, because there's so many things happening. And alhamdulillah, we are now getting people to work on it. By the end of this month, inshallah, we will have another fresh website that announces to the world what IIUM is all about in the context of the flagship and the context of change that we want to to move ahead. For that, we need your help. We need the data, we need the information, we need something which is up to date in real time so that we can present to the world what we are all about in the pride that we want to tell them to know in this particular context. Yeah? So that will be then our flagship. The falsafah pendidikan perasaan bagi saya akan menerajui satu perubahan yang besar bagai permulaan. If we can take this opportunity and make it change, insyaAllah, we will be there and the change will be almost natural and automatic in trying to move this university ahead, insyaAllah. I want to just conclude this by reminding something that is so familiar with us. All these things that I've talked about come and inspired by our song, Leading the Way. Yeah? Leading the way is what we are. You need to ask ourselves today, are we leading the way? If we are not leading the way, then we are following the way, then it is not our song anymore. If we are not leading the way, what must we do? The song tells us we need to balance ourselves and we need to be the Khalifa, the role model, the exemplar, the one that shows the way. Are we the person? Are we a role model in terms of punctuality? Are we the role model in terms of cleanliness? Are we the role model in the whole thing that Islam wants us to do? If we are not, then better start doing it. Because that is what the Khalifa is all about. And the Khalifa will lead the way. No Khalifa, no leading the way. And what is the Khalifa is all about? The song tells us that you must have the amanah before you want to be the Khalifa. No amanah, no Khalifa. Khalifa cannot be compromised. Khalifa has its own principle. Khalifa are courageous in telling what is right and what is wrong. Are we doing this? If you are not, find the amanah. Where do you find the amanah? The song tells us in the culture of Iqra. Read, read, read. Publish, talk, speak. You know? And that's what it's all about. If we don't have that, then we will not arrive at this rahmatan lil alamin. Yeah? We just probably rahmatan lil gomba. I'm not proud to be a university that talks about rahmatan lil gomba. And I'm sure you are not proud either. Or rahmatan lil Kuantan, or rahmatan lil Pago. We want to talk about rahmatan lil alamin. As the song said, the song ends with that, with a mercy for mankind. And that's the lesson that we need to take home. Before we arrive at that, we need to go into this cycle of Khalifa, of Amanah, of Iqra, yeah, of knowledge, and then Rahmatan. And it is what I call a 360 degrees change. A change of the whole person. It's not just his brain or his hand, but not the heart. The heart, the brain, and the hand must change at the same time, in tandem, in convergence, in congruent with what this university is set up to be. Exercise that all of us own this. It is no longer the rectors or the universities, it's all ours now, but we need to start this discussion and this conversation somewhere. Right? So, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Let's lead the way, lighten the future, share the wisdom to the spirit of Islam. Revelation and reason, the shared excel shall prevail. Merging faith and knowledge, we the Khalifa, we will fulfill the amanah. Together we make the world a better place. Forever expand the culture of Iqra. IIUM is to realize the meaning of you're wrong.